So I thought it'd be cool to do a video comparing freelance copywriting to e-commerce, specifically Amazon, because I've done both of these and still actively do both of them actually. I get questions daily about what type of business model to follow or to start for somebody looking to make a side income or to make some income online. And a lot of people will watch videos on many different business models, and the e-commerce business model, dropshipping, Amazon private label FBA, is quite a popular business model, and I can see why, but I want to break down the differences between them to give you some insight from my own experience. So let's just first talk about, what each of them is. You guys are obviously on this channel because you probably want to learn about copywriting, more than likely. Amazon FBA is essentially where you find a product opportunity on Amazon, you then go and find a supplier, more than likely in China, you then make your own product or create your own product with a supplier, and then you bring that product in and then you sell it on Amazon. It is a really good business model, but it's not for everyone. Copywriting, on the other hand, is a business model that anybody can start. The barrier to entries are seemingly much lower, as I'll explain in a second, and the potential, I believe, is just as much, if not better, than e-commerce, depending on what you actually want out of it. Let's talk about the fundamentals of each one. So like learning copywriting versus learning how to start an e-commerce business. There is inherently a lot more involved with starting an e-commerce business than starting freelance copywriting. So with e-commerce, you have to understand a number of different platforms and a number of different pieces of the puzzle for it to be profitable for you. So you have to understand how Amazon works. You have to understand how to get traffic to your listings. You have to understand what makes a good product. You have to understand how to spot an opportunity. Obviously, if you go into a market that's too saturated and it's too high in demand, or like, how are you going to stand out essentially? The other side of the coin is true as well. Obviously, if you go into a market that doesn't have enough demand for you to come into and make enough money from to make it viable. You then have to deal with supplier negotiations. So there's a lot of back and forth communication with a supplier. There's often a language barrier as well that you have to overcome, because suppliers do speak good English, but you have to make sure communication is absolutely spot on. Otherwise, you could potentially be investing a ton of money into a product that is not what you want really. And then obviously there's the logistics of shipping that product over on a boat or in an airplane. And then it's actually setting up your business, setting up your Amazon store and getting customers to your listing and buying. There is a lot more moving parts, I would say, to an e-commerce business compared to a freelance business. So freelance copywriting, let's just look at the fundamentals of learning that. Both are going to take time to learn the fundamentals of. You don't just jump into any business model and become a master from day one. Everything's the same in terms of business models. You have to consistently hone your craft, consistently work on learning and mastering the business model that you decide to go into. And copywriting is no different. I spent months, if not years, constantly refining and learning and consuming content alongside my actual writing to become a better copywriter. And this is just an everlasting process. It never stops. You never reach a point where you're like, well, I've mastered copywriting, now I'm on to the next thing. You are always learning. But to actually learn the fundamentals of how to write persuasive copywriting and then get a client from that, I believe is far less time than it would take you to get confident and comfortable with selling products, physical products on Amazon. You could learn the fundamentals of copywriting in a weekend. I'm not going to say you're going to be an A-grade copywriter, but you could be a proficient writer in literally in a matter of weeks, enough to start getting clients who are paying you money. And then obviously you've got the outreach. So unlike selling a product on Amazon where there's already customers on Amazon, you just have to understand how to divert that traffic to your product. When you're starting a freelance copywriting business, you're essentially putting in the grunt work. You're doing what's called outreach. So you're going out to potential clients, speaking to people to try and get them as clients. Whereas on Amazon, you're essentially just trying to tap into the traffic and get them to come and see your product. So it's a little bit different. So that can take a bit of time to get a client. But the same goes for Amazon. It's going to take you probably from the time you find a product opportunity to actually making your first sale. I probably would say it's going to take about 3 to 4 months, because you've obviously got to develop the product, get the product in, organize everything, the media that goes with it, the photographs, videos, get it actually selling and set up. It's not like an overnight thing. Copywriting, if you were really at a push, you could 100% start making money in less than 30 days. That's if you are really aggressive and you focus a lot of your time and energy and effort into that skill and then getting a client. For most people, though, it probably would be more realistic to say it would take you 60 to 90 days. So the actual time frame for making money is, I probably would say, kind of similar in the beginning. But this is where things get interesting. Let's look at startup costs. So the startup costs of an Amazon business are way different to the startup costs of a freelance copywriting business. Amazon, you have your monthly membership to Amazon's seller membership, which is around £30 a month, which is not going to break the bank, but you need that to sell on Amazon. You then also got your product cost, so you have to buy inventory. With the Amazon coaching that I've done in the past and still do, we recommend to students that they should be investing no less than £3,000 into a product. That will give them ample inventory to give them a good test size, because we don't want to be just ordering 10 products and then deciding whether it's worth doing a reorder on 10 products. It's not enough data. So we say, like, right, can we order a product with 300 to 500 units that would fit our budget? And then that is going to be a decent test size to decide whether it's worth going forward with this product even further. And then obviously you've got shipping on top of that, which could be another £1,000. And then there's all sorts of other ancillary business costs. So you're probably looking at between about £5,000 and £7,000 to get your first product off the ground and selling with Amazon. So it's a much longer term play in a business sense. Freelance copywriting, on the other hand, is very, very different. The barrier to entry is a lot lower, so you don't need as much capital to get started. You're essentially putting in more of your time and energy rather than your capital. Obviously, you've got time in there to become a better writer, so you're practicing copy. You could invest in, which I recommend actually, invest in a business email and a business domain. So you have a one-page landing page that tells people a bit about yourself. You have a professional business email, just so you don't have an @Gmail email, just puts you in a better position, makes you look more professional when you're speaking to potential clients. And those per year probably would cost you about $50, £50 max. And you can pay a little bit more, but the startup costs really are almost non-existent compared to an e-commerce business where you have to really front load capital into products. In copywriting, to start with, you will be putting in more of your time than your money. However, you can speed this process up by investing in mentors and coaches. It's the same for e-commerce as well. Investing in a course or investing in something that teaches you what you want to do is such a good skill to have and such a good thing to do. So in anything I've ever done, I've always seeked out coaches and mentors because it's the fastest way to get where you want to go. It's almost like less expensive, if that makes sense, because you will spend more of your time learning to piece all the pieces of the puzzle together, whereas you can just go and speak to somebody who maybe has a step-by-step course on how to do what you want to do, and you just follow them because they've already walked the path you're currently going on or thinking about going down, and they know how to navigate all the roadblocks. They know how to get to the goal like faster without stress and complexities, which if you go on your own, you have to figure out for yourself, which is going to cost you time. And if you do value your time, which I hope you do because it's finite, whereas money is infinite, you can make as much money as you want, you should be valuing your time. And if we look at profit margins here for both businesses, in an e-commerce business, once you take into account all your expenses, your inventory costs, maybe advertising spend, storage costs, fulfillment fees, all that stuff, you're probably going to be left with a maximum of 30 to 40% profit margin, and that's at absolute best. We've got products selling on Amazon now that still sell for, decent margins, about 25-30% profit margin, which is quite good for an e-commerce business. But if you compare that to a freelance copywriting business, when you start getting clients, you essentially take home 90 to 95% of the profits, which is it's not even a battle, I know it's two completely different business models, but you don't have any expenses as a copywriter, really. I mean, you might have some tools and software, like ChatGPT might be able to help you out. You might have Hemingway for checking your spelling and grammar. You might have, your business domain and your email. But those are really, really low cost compared to what you'd need to invest into an e-commerce business to get it off the ground and making you money. So those are kind of like my breakdowns of things. The ongoing potential depends where you're at. If you're literally looking for a way to make money online, like a side income, copywriting for me was the thing that I chose because of the reasons I've just given. I started an e-commerce business later on because I had spare capital to invest into it. And I am very much now at a point where I would like to start creating more income vehicles. So like multiple different income streams from different business models. And I have the capital to do that at the minute. I'm not saying I'm like some massive wealthy rich dude or anything, but I've got some spare capital. I'd like to invest into different things because I see the potential all these different business models can produce for me. So that's why I started an Amazon business, which is fairly passive now. Like, I don't have to do that much. It's just more of maintenance and keeping on top of reorders and making sure our products are in stock. Whereas obviously copywriting, you're doing a lot of the work yourself in the beginning. You're doing the writing for the client until you get to a point, maybe if you want to scale, you have multiple writers working for you and things like that, or even revenue share deals as well, which I should do a video on this channel really, which is where you would take a portion of the profits that are made based on the copywriting that a client uses that you've written. There are some useful links in the description below to all things copywriting related, so you can jump in my free copy club, and there's my 0 to paid course. So go check them out. Any questions, pop them below and I'll get back to you with a response or even a video.